Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. We have here a first time guest on the show. She is writer, director, model, a little bit of everything here today, and we're glad she could join us. Please welcome Rose Kreider. Rose, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
Oh, it's hot. It's hot where I'm at. I'm in South Carolina. Where you coming to us from?
Seattle, and it's also like 85, 90 this week, so I'm sweating sitting here.
I feel that. I've got a daughter that's actually out there in Seattle. I think I talked to you about that on the phone. But yeah, she's out there right now. She says the humidity is a lot different. It's not quite as, the humidity isn't as bad out there.
Yeah, it's not as bad. I think my body and hair are used to it. And I
Yeah.
know when I went to Texas, I went to Houston one time, and I mean, I just like shriveled up basically. I got hives everywhere 'cause it's so dry.
Yeah. So we're going to talk to you a little bit today because when we spoke on the phone, I found it fascinating as much that you've covered and in such a short period of time. It's very impressive. But before we get into all that, let's kind of quickly get a little bit of background on you. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up, what your aspirations were, and then what led you to kind of get into this game that you're in now.
Yeah, so I'm from born and raised in Seattle. Growing up, I always wanted to be a music producer. But I was told by my family that it's a dog eat dog world and I wasn't going to make it big. And so I kind of put that to the side and started playing lacrosse for a bit right out of high school, and waited for college until way later in my life. And I just traveled around and I kind of fell into this modeling promotions kind of like liquor gig where like I would go around and serve liquor to people at bars. And then that kind of brought me to modeling and doing runway. So I did that for a couple of years, and then COVID hit and I started doing online modeling. And then when COVID kind of subsided just a little bit last year, I started doing runway modeling in New York Fashion Week. And I started meeting a lot of people in our Pacific Northwest industry who are acting and modeling, and they kind of brought me under their ropes to do small roles, and that kind of led to bigger roles. And last year I was a lead in a short, and from there I just saw myself on the big screen and I was like, wow, I really enjoy the process of the director's role, writing and editing and kind of being in charge of the production. And so my partner was like, hey, it seems like you're really fascinated with that, so maybe you should consider doing one yourself. And that night after the premiere, I had a dream about my movie The Woman, and I wrote it all out, woke up, basically wrote it in a week, and then I started casting. And 4.5 months later, I saw it on the big screen, and now it's playing on TV.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot to accomplish in a short period of time. So, like, how did you go about getting your first acting role? Because I think that's something that a lot of people, to say, well, oh, I don't know how to do it, or, oh, I don't know what steps to take, or, did you do headshots? Did you really go all out? Did you get a manager? Did you just audition? Did you see something online? How did you go about getting the very first one?
So I had been connected with a director writer who decided to do a comedy skit that ended up on Amazon Prime. And there was like a last minute call on Facebook group. It was like a extras Facebook group. And I've kind of, that's how I built my network, is I've kind of created a name for myself on these multiple platforms in Washington state. So anything that has to do with actors needed, screenwriters, directors, collaboration, stuff like that. I just meet people from there. And when I started modeling, I kind of added myself to the modeling pages and the acting pages. And one person posted that they needed someone that weekend. And it was ironically like a Thursday or Friday. And I was like, hey, I'm free. So I went on set. I had a couple of lines, and I was in episode 4 of his show. And from there, he just kind of introduced me to people in the crew. And then I started getting other gigs from there, and it just kind of took off.
So just networking is the key to it, I think.
Yeah, definitely don't be shy. I mean, there's a lot of introverts in the Pacific Northwest region. I find myself kind of in between being an extrovert and introvert, depending on my mood and the crowd.
Right.
But in this industry, you really have to put yourself out there.
Right.
You're not going to be recognized or do much or get invited to audition for anything if you're not sourcing yourself.
No, I agree with that 100%. And I live in the Charleston area, and they've actually, been shooting a lot of movies around here, even some TV shows. And I joined some of those myself not too long ago to be extras and the kind of the things like what you're talking about. And I didn't get picked for the show Righteous Gemstones that's on HBO that gets filmed down here. But I did get picked up for something. I don't even know the name of it. I don't even know if they said the name of it in the thing. It just said they needed somebody to play a certain part, and it paid 150, and it's on a weekend. And so I sent them an audition tape of what they wanted me to say. And actually today, as a matter of fact, they told me that I got the part. So, you know, I'll see how it goes and
That's so
where we can
fun.
spend that off. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm like you. I feel like not necessarily. I'm sure being on camera will be cool, but I feel like I've always kind of had like a vision for what I want things to look like.
Mm.
And I think a thing that's kind of bringing that to light nowadays more than ever is when I see pictures, I always kind of equate music to it. Like what kind of music would be good for that picture or somebody doing that. And the way that people are doing TikToks nowadays and Instagram stories, like putting music with certain scenes, I just think that's so cool. When years ago, that would have been copyrighted and you couldn't do it.
Mhm.
Now I think it's given a lot of people creative freedom to kind of do with that and play around. And I think a lot of people are maybe realizing that this could be something that they wanted to get into when before maybe they didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah, and I've noticed that Instagram is turning into a video platform. I
Yeah.
don't know how many people have noticed that, but I
Yeah.
mean,
I
I
think it
guess
was
I'm
last
kind
week,
of,
right? Didn't it start
yeah,
like a week or two ago? Yeah.
and I fell into the trap. Like most of my posts now are reels because I have so many pictures of cool sets or like, shoots, and I don't want to annoy people by like just posting a bunch of pictures, so I just
Right.
created a reel. That's kind of my thing. But a lot of, like, I guess celebrities are getting really upset because Instagram is turning into this TikTok video platform versus here's a picture of my life.
Yeah. And I mean that's just kind of it's evolution. I mean everything changes, everything kind of changes with the times. I think probably by and large Instagram sees the popularity of TikTok and what people are able to do with it, and they're trying to get their own piece of it cuz TikTok has really blew up. I mean, I remember when it first come out, I told people, I was like, "Man, you won't find me on that thing. I'm not doing that." And then here I am a year later, and I got one. It was a while before I done one for me personally, but I did have one for this show, Crime and Entertainment, where I would put out clips from the interviews. But I just decided to do one for my own personal use and just do funny stuff with it. Just make funny videos and make people laugh, and that's kind of what I've always been good at, just kind of a comedic thing. But definitely, I think that artistic bone it lets you create things. Like I can record something. Like I had my son at a pool, and he was running and jumped in, and so I was recording it. I was able to go under the water because my phone was waterproof, and just turn that to slow mo. And then I had a certain music I want to put behind it, and it just turned out fabulous. And that's the kind of thing that makes me think, God, I would want to do, try my hand at a short or something like that. How did you kind of get that feeling that you wanted to do your own short? Was it, something similar, or what kind of led you to that?
Yeah, so when I was in the middle of production for The Woman, beginning of this year, I decided to create a production company, Rose Kreider Productions, because everybody that was involved in the movie kept saying, "Hey, like during editing, what production company are we utilizing?" And I was like, "I don't know," because I produced it, wrote and directed it. So it kind of inspired me to create my own production company. And it was really funny when I announced it with my logo and everything. I saw a bunch of other people in my friends group also post like the same week that they started a production company. So it's a really common thing here.
Yeah.
Um, but I made an announcement with a post announcement saying, this production company is specifically for screenwriters that aren't necessarily actors or people that want to direct. They just write a bunch, and they're really good at it, that want to get their movie out, whether it's a feature or a short. And so, a lot of production companies include a bunch of employees or like crew and equipment, and that's not mine. Mine is based solely around, hey, if you're a screenwriter or you're a person that has a really great idea and you want to pitch it to me, I will turn it into a movie if that's a great collaboration for the both of us. So um, for my short, A Room by the Road, I was approached after The Woman came out, literally like 2 weeks after the movie came out. And we kind of tweaked his screenplay a little bit. And I was a co-writer on it. And we filmed it in May for one day, and then it came out in June. So I plan on doing shorts myself. I have a lot of other goals before I create another film.
So
So
with shorts, where do you go to like put those? Are those like for film festivals, or where do you go to put those out there? And how can some of our audience maybe go, track those down and take a look at them?
yeah, so I have a YouTube channel. Most everything right now is unlisted, but what you can see is the Woman trailer. So if you're interested in seeing the full movie, you can either email me, it's rosekreiderproductions@gmail, or you can literally go onto your smart TV and type in the search bar. I mean, everyone has a home page, right, on a smart TV. You go to the search bar and you type in The Woman, and it's called The Woman parentheses 2022, and it has my poster and you can watch it right now. It's going to be on Amazon Prime. It's on Plex TV, which is a free app, you don't have to
Yep.
pay or subscribe, and then One Hub TV, which it comes out this month for One Hub TV. So yeah, I mean, anyone can watch it on TV. If you have a smart TV or if you have one of those apps, you can watch it on YouTube. If you're interested and you don't have something like that, you can either find me on Instagram or Facebook, and it's just a small fee of $2 to watch it. All the money goes towards my next feature, so it goes back into the pot for my production company.
So have you think that you've kind of got your focus behind the camera as opposed to in front of it, or you still want to do a little bit of both, maybe mix it in and out?
Yeah, I found myself the last 2 weeks acting a lot more than I have in the last like year. Because I basically started going behind screens and writing and directing since October last year. So it's been that long since I've been in front. But I'm in a couple of small roles, but in big movies. Polito with Keenan, the Keenan guy from Twilight, forget his last name,
Yeah.
but I just finished set last week for that. I'm just a bar patron. And then there's a local movie called Killcraft that I think is going to be on Amazon Prime, and I'm a police officer in it. Both of these don't have any lines, but I did just participate in the Seattle 48-hour film festival. I don't know if you guys have that in your state, but it's very common over here. It happens in Oregon, I believe Idaho, Nevada, California. But I was the main character in it. And actually, this last weekend, they had a whole ceremony and screening of like all of the films. And our film won top 4 out of 52, and we won best writing. So it was
Wow.
really, really exciting. That's free on YouTube if you type in Last Goodbye. It's called Last Goodbye 48-hour film festival. So
Oh,
to answer your question, it's kind of funny that I'm starting to get back into the front of the camera. I think I would rather prefer to get behind camera more. I like being in front of the camera, but like the 48-hour film festival was so difficult for me because a little bit of background in it, you draw your own category, so your genre, the night before, and then the writers have literally from like 7:30 p.m. on a Friday until the next morning to create a movie. And then as an actor, you show up and you get the script and you have like an hour to practice, and then you have
wow.
to perform. And I was a lead. I had so many lines and I couldn't get it down because it was like the first time I had been in front of a camera in so long that it was really difficult for me.
So that's kind
So
of up under the gun stuff right there. All of us kind of on the fly.
yeah, it was on the fly. I thought my performance was okay. A lot of people came up to me and was like, I really liked it. But I'm more comfortable kind of giving direction,
Mhm.
and I feel like I'm a visionary person. I'm really creative. I'm finding myself being on sets and critiquing how directors direct and how they produce the film and how they interact with the actors. And it's weird, it's weird being on the other side and seeing how other people operate, because I'm not trying to be judgmental, but I'm like, wow, this could be a little bit different,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I get
Um,
that exactly.
so I'm really excited to start directing again.
No, I mean it sounds like you've got your, your plan all mapped out there. Now, a little thing that I learned when I've been listening to podcasts and talking with some actors, when you're in like a big movie role, like what you were talking about, if you are an extra, that's a certain pay scale. But then when you actually have a speaking role, that bumps you up pretty substantially, from what I understand. Is that correct? When you actually do have speaking parts?
Yeah. However, if it's a large production, like Polito with the Twilight guy, as an extra, we got paid
Okay.
just to be there. So I think it really just depends on if the movie's picked up. The movie Polito is picked up by Paramount Pictures and HBO Max. So they had a larger budget. Um, for my next feature, Deadly Delivery, which is an Amazon book series by my friend, he approached me, he saw my movie and was like, I want you to create, a movie series of my book series. I crowdfunded through like a crowdfund source here, and we raised, I mean, like $500. It's not a lot, but unlike my two other films, I'm able to pay people a little bit. So even as backgrounds, I'm paying people a little bit. So it just really depends on how much money you have to create the film.
Right. Yeah. How much to go? I mean, I think it was actually an HBO project. It was Sopranos, which I'm a big fan of their TV show, and I was listening to the Talking Sopranos with two of the stars, and it was saying how like when people would want to have those roles where you could speak, because I guess they had pay scales for the background people and all that in all the scenes, but when you actually had to say something, even if it was one line, one word, whatever, um, that would bump them up. And then obviously, if you became on like a series such as that, when you become a reoccurring character, that also bumps you up dramatically too. And I don't know if I don't know if that's standard across the board, but another guy we talked to, Larry Hankin, I think he was saying it's like your fifth episode and something. If you appear in, then you become a reoccurring character.
Mm.
And he was in the Friends series.
Oh, wow.
He played Mr. Heckles. He was the guy that was always showed up with the cat in the bathrobe.
Yeah.
And so
That's so
whatever it
funny.
was, I can't remember if it was the fifth or the fourth, but it was like once he done that one, if he was in one more, he would become a reoccurring character, and
Mm.
his pay would go up pretty substantial, even though the role was small.
Yeah.
And they killed him off, and so he was upset, and he went into like the production meeting and was like, cussing people out, and really giving them the business in there because they cut him off right before he was going to be a reoccurring character.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's really difficult to get noticed. And
Mhm.
I've realized here there's people that you see often in backgrounds and speaking roles, and the speaking roles that they get, they typically have an agent
Mhm.
that finds the roles and they have to audition for it. It's true that if you, like Polito, for example, I had a lot of friends who had speaking roles. They had their own trailer, even their own costumes and stuff like
Wow.
that. So they they all are with the same agent, and they had to audition for it. So there's a just a big difference with pay if you have a speaking role versus not. But it also depends on the production itself, if they're from Hollywood, if they're local, if they're really well known and they raise a bunch of money, or are they literally from Hollywood and they got executive producers to give them money for the film. So it all just depends.
Yeah, fascinating world. The film business, and you can have those films that I think once in a while a film will come along to where it's that idea where everybody goes, God, I should have thought of that. And one that kind of comes to mind with me is the Blair Witch Project. And that
Yeah.
was when I was in school. I mean, that movie just everybody wanted to go see it because it mixed reality with horror. It was kind of like your uh, what do you call that now? What the like reality TV or whatever? It was kind of like your cutting edge reality TV slash horror. And I mean, just what it cost to make that, because it was a handheld camera, was peanuts. and then
Yeah.
it earns millions of dollars. I mean,
Yeah.
millions and millions. I don't even think the actors were paid, but like 15 grand a piece, I think.
Hmm.
So I mean, the return on that was crazy, and then you have things that's kind of followed in that footsteps, like Paranormal Activity. Also, great films. That
Hmm.
returned a lot, and so there's an idea out there. I think always that's waiting to be, come upon, found by someone that can, exploit it and get in there and get your foot in the door. And it
Hmm.
sounds like you're on the right track. Quick question: if you was to get offered something tomorrow, your own feature film, who would you mostly want to work with right now? It can be known, unknown, whatever. Who would kind of be the ones that you would put in roles?
Oh yeah. So this is an easy question for me because I really look up to this person and I value everything that he's done. Probably Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek. Not
Yeah,
only is he a phenomenal actor, but he also created Schitt's Creek. So he's done both sides also. And he's just hilarious and seems really genuine, and easy to talk to. So and to work with. So I would definitely put him in it. Um, yeah, probably the whole cast from Schitt's Creek, to be honest. I really liked all of their personalities, and I have studied them, outside of their characters, and they're really they wear a lot of hats. Like I like how each character has done not only like one genre, and they're broadening their perspective on like Hollywood stuff and doing things outside of the box or out of their comfort zone. Versus here, like in the Pacific Northwest region, I find that a lot of people that have been around for a while, they are now stuck in these little pockets,
hmm,
these little niches. And it's kind of difficult to kind of broaden your horizon if everyone here is doing the same type of movie.
right.
Um, a lot of thrillers, a lot of horrors. That's kind of basically what it is. Less thriller, more horror, like blood, crime stuff. But um, yeah, there's a lot of people here that need to kind of get out of their little pockets. And I think Dan Levy specifically is someone I would want to work with.
Yeah, I mean, to go along with that, I mean, horror I think is always going to be there because people, I think, have that need to want to be scared. But at the same token, people have the need to want to laugh. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can get that, with a comedy series like Schitt's Creek, I mean, that can work just as well. Because you think of how many like well-known, Friends that we just spoke of, for example. I mean, that was made I don't know how many years ago, but I mean, still, I can put on an episode of that and laugh because the writing was so good that the
Mm-hmm.
comedy and everything still holds up today, even. So it's, if
Yeah.
you get the right people together, man, you can make magic and it'll last for a while. I think one of my favorite people that does it in front and behind of the camera is Quentin Tarantino.
Mm, yeah.
He,
Hmm.
he doesn't necessarily take on large roles in the movies. He kind of has a little small role in them, like Reservoir Dogs. He was in there for a brief period of time, From Dusk Till Dawn, things like that. But I think that's more or less of one of those things to where he knows what he wants to be, and so he needs to be involved, and he just has a vision, and he knows exactly what he wants. And those kind of people, I won't lie, inspire me because he worked at a video store and he
Hmm.
wrote he sold a script. I think it was for True Romance, and I maybe even Natural Born Killers. I know he had something to do with that script, but then that financed Reservoir Dogs, and then after that, it was Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, Django, Hateful Eight.
Hmm.
I mean, just obviously it's been on fire. The recent Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Did you catch that
Hmm.
one?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
Honestly, I was confused because I am super into true crime.
Right,
Like, if I right now were to turn on my TV at, with popcorn and want to watch something, it's not going to be a movie. It's going to be a documentary.
right.
I like true life things right now. So I obviously studied the actual story behind the movie, so much that it was like gross. And when I watched the movie, I was expecting something, and they totally made it the very end. They kind of twisted it. And I was like,
Yeah.
it was good, I think, up until the very end when I was like, okay, this is when it happens. And then it just totally
Yeah,
flopped for me.
I think that was kind of. maybe his way of not getting too much backlash for it because he didn't go into the, I believe what you exactly what you said. You were waiting for the slaughter to begin, so to speak. And with I think escaping out of that, he didn't have to deal with the backlash of saying he was glorifying the murderers and this, that, and the other.
Mhm.
That's my take on it. Now, I don't know, but I'm like you. When I watched it, I think everybody was kind of waiting for that last scene. How was he, especially being him and how he's done movies in the past? How is he going to let that play out? And it just
Mhm.
kind of threw you for a loop as the viewer, for sure.
Yeah, it went to a comedy aspect.
Yeah, yeah,
and
for sure.
and to go back kind of on what we were talking about with the little niches, and we kind of need to create more comedy, um comedy is so difficult. It
Mhm.
really is. Like, it's one of those things where usually does really well in theaters and with audience. A lot of people give it a try, but everybody has similar personalities, I think, but sense of humor is like so a hit or miss. And my sense of humor might not make sense to someone else. And no one here in Seattle really has tried a comedy. Like the shorts that I've seen, I don't even laugh over them. And like other people, like my peers, they laugh hysterically at it. So I'm like, well, that kind of tells me if I try to make a comedy, people probably won't find it funny.
Right.
Because I like Schitt's Creek and Friends and that 70s show, things like that. um People here watch that, and I love The Office, but it's like really difficult to kind of come up with your own that is like the same congruency of like Schitt's Creek and The Office, and have people here actually want to watch it and laugh. So yeah, sorry to break up the conversation with
No,
that side note, but it's entirely difficult, I think, comedy to get into.
no, absolutely. I mean, and it's definitely a niche, and I mean, people have successfully, mixed the two. Like Scream being an example of that. That they're still making movies off of to this day. I remember the first time I watched that in theaters. I think that was the only movie I've ever watched in theaters three times.
Mm,
I've got three sisters, and every one of them took me to see it because two of them lived in different states. When we were visiting, it was still in theaters, so I was telling them how good it was. So they took me to see it as well. But I remember even as a kid, I was a younger kid, but I noticed how they blended the comedy along with the horror, and that seemed like something that kind of stuck after that, and it was more commonplace. And I mean,
yeah.
it's still, what they just come out with, five, I think it was, not, about maybe 6, 8 months ago.
Mhm.
Um, and I think they're already on board for a six. Nev Campbell, I think, signed up. She wasn't going to do it, and I think she's back on board now. So you can mix comedy, you can mix horror, you can mix drama, you can mix them in a lot of different ways. And that's all going to depend on someone like yourself, the director and the direction you want to give it, and just kind of what you're feeling and what you're going for. And I think, man, I think you're on the right track. I mean, everything, I can see the passion in it when you talk about it. And that's something that you can tell whenever you talk to someone if they're really passionate about it, if they're just trying something, if they're just winging it, throwing something against the wall to see if it sticks, or if they really like, this is what I want to do. And I can see that from you, that you have that passion for that, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I basically dropped everything to pursue this. When my movie came out in March, uh, I was working at Microsoft, and I had been at Microsoft on and off on contracts for like 7, 8 years, something like that. And when my movie came out, like literally, like my phone wouldn't shut up, and I got all of these, offers to do these projects and distributors calling me and all this stuff, and I couldn't handle it. It's a full-time job to me, so I left Microsoft. Um, Unfortunately, I actually started working again at Microsoft just last week, because filmmaking has slowed down a bit after A Room by the Road came out. The intention for this month in August, I was supposed to start filming Deadly Delivery, that Amazon book series I was talking about. But it's so difficult to find a crew during the summer because everyone has already pre planned productions. So it's postponed until fall, which leaves me room to pursue something I'm super, super passionate about. And I haven't yet announced it to anybody. So I can announce it on your podcast if you
All
like.
right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, long story short, back to the 48-hour bit. People were posting their 48 hours, and hoping for people to watch it and comment below on what they thought. And I was in a particularly bad mood that day. This was just last week, and I saw a post that had to do with like gun control and how bad guns are and how it's basically ruining America. And they made a whole movie about it for 48 Hour. I haven't publicly really come out and said I'm Republican, but I am pro 2A. If you don't know what 2A is, then it's Second Amendment. It's been
Yep.
around in our Constitution for years and years and years. Um, I, yeah, I'm definitely pro 2A. I'm an advocate for it. My partner is as well. So yeah, it kind of ticked me off to see this person say, "Thank you so much, actors, for basically doing this really hard video, but it's a topic that's really important, and I'm glad I got to make a movie about it." And I made a comment below saying, basically saying that it gave me the idea to create a pro 2A movie, and I got a bunch of hate for it. I had people messaging me saying, like literally quoting me saying like how retarded I sounded. And I I am a person that is true to my word. I don't throw out facts, or I don't throw out things that I'm going to say I'm going to do and not do it. I literally think about my process and think about what I'm going to say and do before I post it. And I made the post and went to my significant other and was like, "Hey, let's create a documentary." And no one here, I'm pretty sure no one here in the Seattle area has even tapped into documentaries. I haven't seen anything. Most of it is feature films with hot shot names. They get a lot of crowdfund, and people like myself want to be extras in it. Or they're shorts and they're horrors and they're crime, they're thrillers. I'm planning on making a documentary that's going to be pro-life, pro-gun, and how your neighbors save lives. So it's going to be an informative, inspiring, educational, true life, interviews from people who have used a firearm to save either their lives, a grocery store clerk's life, their family's life, whatever it is. I mean, it can literally be your next door neighbor. And there's so many corrupt people in the world. They don't think about how guns actually do save lives. So my goal is to cater to not just Republicans, but also Democrats, because our state is a blue state. So I'm trying to cater to the people here and make it more of an educational thing,
Mm-hmm.
to show that guns actually can save lives. And unfortunately, with all of these, you know, murders that are happening, that's not something that we are proud of. Like, they're ruining the Second Amendment
Yeah.
and our right to bear arms. But unfortunately, the news makes it sound like owning a gun is bad. If you own a gun, you're a bad person. And that is not a fact. Not a fact at all.
I agree with you 100%. And I had no idea this is what you were talking about. You told me you had something you were going to announce. I didn't know what it was until just now. But I'll tell you what, I'll support that any way I can, because I too am a big proponent of the Second Amendment. And you're absolutely right. When something like that happens, it doesn't get the coverage that it deserves when, like, say, a robbery is foiled, or something is stopped before it released, or it got to like a massacre. It doesn't get the same press as when somebody does, unfortunately, go into a supermarket and gun down multiple people, or go into a school. But you need people out there with concealed carry permits that can help out the police. The police aren't going to always be able to be everywhere that someone may need them. And half the people that were commenting on whatever that was you said, and calling you those names, if they were in a situation where they needed a gun, I bet your ass they would want to use one to help save their life.
Mm-hmm.
And, but
Yeah.
nobody ever thinks about that until they're in that situation.
And unfortunately, I don't know how much you know about our state. After 2020, was it 2020 or 2021? Probably 2020. During all of the riots that happened,
Right.
um, our state became even more blue, and our city is completely wrecked. Like anyone watching this that is from Seattle, like you can't lie about that. Like our city is donezo. And people in the news only ever shine light on the negativity. And anytime you open up the news and you see something of someone stopping a robbery here, they shine light on it in a negative way. So, for example, there was something last month. There was this guy has a large property, and like acres away, he has a fence, and the fence is pretty small. And uh, neighbors, like these little teenager robbers that knew the guy and knew his property, came through the back, walked through the forest, and came through the back. And of course, the guy has cameras and everything. And he warned the guys because they came in with firearms and was attempting to come in, and there was basically a shoot off. And the house owner killed the attempted robber. And the news here blew up because they're like, this person, now they're under investigation. And it's like, I'm not understanding why responsible CPL owners like myself are getting, in trouble for holding our rights down. And there's really, you can't always say that that police are always nice. There are some corrupt police, but like to your point, where you're saying, if you are in a situation, and say you're anti-gun rights, right? If you're in a situation here, which is very common as a female, you could be walking alone in like Capitol Hill. It's happened. Homeless people come and attack you. You call the cops. Well, they defunded Seattle police. They defunded. They cut, I mean, like 45% of our police force here. So, what are you going to do? You know, that's why I want to really promote it as neighborly heroes. I'm kind of toying with the title right now, so that's not potentially the title, but neighborly heroes, people that are your next door neighbor or the house over, or people that are buying apples with you at the grocery store. They could be the ones to literally save your life. So, for all these anti gun advocates and people that are passing bills left and right behind our backs, like, you don't understand.
And
People
it's
don't
crazy
understand.
because they use situations like this for political, gains when that's not really the issue that we should be worried about. They're using these tragedies to run their motives in politics.
Mhm.
And that's just not really where I think we should be focused on. It should obviously, I think we could probably zero in a little bit more on mental health and what's
Mhm.
causing some of these people to do this. But the same token, and I've said this to a number of people, if you take away the guns from the good guys, the bad guys don't give a shit about your rules.
Mhm.
So the bad guys are going to be the ones that have the guns, and what are you going to, defend yourself with?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen in the news. It was about a couple weeks ago. There was a bodega owner in New York that got attacked in his store, and he wound up. I don't know if he had a knife or if the guy had a knife. Anyways, he stabbed the guy. The guy died, and they charged the bodega owner with murder. I mean, like the guy come into his store, you can see it clear as day on videotape, and is attacking the man, like beating him up, being rough with him, and the guy defended himself, and he got charged for murder. And I mean, I don't know what that is that people are being charged, or like you said, investigated, or looked into, or even looked at negatively. If they're doing something to defend themselves or their business, I mean, that is what castle doctrine is for.
Mhm.
It's for your place of business, your work, or your car. I don't know if y'all have that in Seattle. That is something that's here in the South, but you know, that's what those things are there for you to protect, and for it to be even a question nowadays if somebody's trying to break in your home, if you would have
Mhm.
to stop and think, well, God, am I going to get in trouble for this while somebody's breaking into your? That's just
Right.
ridiculous to even have to even comprehend or even think about.
Yeah, I literally have nightmares over these things. More specifically, not in my household. I'm not really afraid of someone coming in because you don't want to come here. But like going grocery shopping. I live in Seattle. Like a half a block from me is a homeless camp. So I've seen enough crime in the area for my lifetime just here. And I can't even hardly go to the grocery store without feeling like uneasy because of how much stuff happens in this grocery store, my local grocery store. And I see people walking in just like on their cell phones, like not thinking that Seattle and this area in particular is really unsafe. Like they're not actively in the yellow. Green is where you're la-di-da on your phone, level green. You don't really have a care what's going on, and you're going to be the first to have something happen to you because you're not cautious. Yellow is like you're always cautious of your surroundings, but you're not actively looking like you're the bad guy, right? You don't have crazy eyes, you're just looking. Red is like you are ready to go. You have protection if something might need to happen. And you're willing to do that to save your life and other lives. But I have these dreams that I'm going and getting like strawberries and apples, and my back is faced toward like the door at Safeway, and someone comes in and just starts shooting up. Like I'm having these all the time nightmares, and it's scary to think about how that could potentially happen because you see all the time there's people that come into grocery stores, and even when you're walking the parking lot, they hit the parking lot first. Like America's scary. And
Oh yeah.
for the government to say, hey, we're going to vote to ban AR-15s, we're going to vote to ban bump stocks, we're going to vote to ban, at least in our state, we they just passed a ban to eliminate any mags that are more than 10. But let's talk about this for a second. Usually people that come in to do harm with an AR-15, to do harm. Like as a citizen, I feel like we can do good with an AR-15. But if you're having a mag that's 10 or less, even though a regular 9 Glock doesn't come with 10, it comes with 17, plus one in the chamber. But 10 or less, and then you have someone who's coming with a 30 round high velocity gun, that's not going to add up. You're not going to be able to save your citizens' lives as much.
Yeah.
And then the police are taking 5 to 10 minutes to get to the scene. So yeah, for the government in America to vote to take away the Second Amendment, which has been here for hundreds of years, is ridiculous. So
I
I'm
agree.
making a
100%.
film. Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of stand up and not be silenced anymore, because in this industry, in Hollywood, there's a lot of, anti-gun, super far left people, filmmakers and stuff like that here too. And I'm so done being hushed. I'm so done being hushed. So whether you like it, don't like it, I don't really care. Hopefully, if you're a Democrat, you want to watch just to be educated, and you might learn something, and that's fine. If you're still anti-gun, fine, but at least you might learn something.
Yeah, at least be open minded. And, look, I always say that the world would not be it would be a boring place if everybody agreed. Everybody is free to their right to think whatever they want. Some people are not gun people. That's fine. I'm not trying to convince you to be gun people. I'm not trying to convince a gun person to not have guns. Everybody should be able to make their own choices. But at the same time, you shouldn't chastise someone or try to make another person feel a certain way because they're for it. Just like those people you said on that post, trying to make you feel bad for being that. Nobody should feel bad about wanting to protect their family or their self or, their loved ones or their business or whatever else. I mean, it's so touchy now with obviously with cell phones and everything. Or I think that one guy that went to Buffalo, he had a body camera on the when it went to the grocery store, and like you said, with response times being what they are, 5-7 minutes. I mean, he went in and cleaned out that store probably in less than a minute and a half.
Yeah,
So cops aren't going to do you no good, even if you
yeah,
got a whole police force full of them. I mean, by the time they get there, the damage is done. So I mean, had someone been in that store that was a concealed carries holder,
yeah,
maybe they could have done something, to prevent it. I mean, it's
exactly.
possible.
And just to add just a little bit more depth to my documentary on the education aspect, um, I know for a fact in our news here in Seattle, a lot of pro-gun, stories like that. Let's say that the person did actually like save people's lives, or they save their family because of a robbery. You do not see that in news unless it is a negative connotation. But if you actively like search Google or Bing or any search engine, you have to actively search. It's suppressed, like
Yeah,
layers
that
deep.
doesn't fit the narrative they want to push.
Right. So we're absolutely going to bring that fact into the documentary. I'm doing interviews with survivors, people that have, I call heroes. People that just regular human beings that have done good, but their news story has not been lifted. Like, these people in particular that I am talking with, they are not seeking attention. They're just doing good. They're just armed for good. They're doing good, versus people here where it's like activism, like they want to be heard, they want everyone to have a following, they want people to back them up, they want the news there. That's not what most CPL holders I know want. They just want to do good. That's it.
No, you're absolutely right, and I'm with you 100% on that. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about that, and they was like, well, you don't read about that often. And I'm like, yeah, but that's because they don't publish it. Like you said, it might be there, but it's going to be buried 15 pages deep, or on the back page of the paper in a little small column, or something
Mhm.
like that. What's on the front page is the more horrifying stuff where someone couldn't stop it. And like you said, it's there, and it's a lot more common than people think, but
Mhm.
it doesn't push the narrative that I think the mainstream media and others want to push, that are trying to take away that Second Amendment right. So look here,
Exactly.
I support you 100% on that. I'll do whatever I can to help you. I'll help promote it. You let me know. I'll put it out, trailers, whatever, man. I'm behind you 100% on that. I think that's a great idea too.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think anyone is ballsy enough to do that, and I am super balls to the walls on this.
Well, I
So
think you taking that step, I think you will find there are people that support the Second Amendment 100%. And I think if they catch wind of what you're doing, I think you will have more support than you realize.
mm, I hope so. I have a distributor that has my film on the platforms that I mentioned earlier. A Room by the Road isn't on a platform right now, so if you are interested in seeing it, you have to message me on email or Instagram or Facebook, and then I can send you the private link. But right now, I'm just trying to get it on a TV platform that does shorts because
Mhm.
it is only about 8 minutes. But this documentary is going to be like an hour or more, all true life, and hopefully someone picks it up and it gets more attention. That's my ultimate goal. So
Well, I tell you what, we wish you the best with that. And like I said, again, if there's anything you need help with that, for me, if I can find some people for you to interview, I mean, I'd be happy to help push that, because I think that's a fantastic idea. For people that want to find out a little bit more about you, and maybe check out some of your work, we're going to include links to your Facebook, your Instagram, and your YouTube page as well. So if they're, interested in some of the things that you got, they can, DM you, or, go check out all your work. And I mean, it's been a fantastic interview. I was not expecting that, and that just totally like changed this whole. I could talk another 2 hours on that by itself. So it's a good thing you brought that up towards the end. We might have to sit back down for a part two when you get this up and going for sure.
I'm really happy that we kind of changed trajectory because this is really something that's that I'm passionate about. And like I said, I haven't mentioned it to anybody except for the person that's going to be filming. And yeah, I'm really excited to have told you and let everybody know. And I feel like us kind of, going through the whole kind of the idea of the documentary in pieces is really helpful for viewers and people that might hear this and be interested, because there's going to be a lot of spectrums to it. So I'm
Absolutely.
happy. It was a really great time speaking with you, and really excited about doing the documentary and everyone seeing the woman in A Room by the Road.
I am too, man. I'm pumped, and I'm gonna check out some of those myself, and I'll let you know what I think, and we'll put that out there for our viewers to go check them out as well. Listen, you're doing all the right things, you're making all the right moves, and I got a feeling not too long we're gonna be seeing your name on the tops of the movies there on the big time for sure. I can see it.
Thank you. So nice talking with you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Hollywood Wade, and that was Rose Crater. And unfortunately, we are out of time. Tune in next week for an all new episode of Crime and Entertainment. Rose, we appreciate it.